So I want to talk to you about supercharging classroom moments with Kahoot and how to make your Kahoots awesome, how to make your class awesome. So here I am. I'm a science teacher. I'm also the National Honor Society advisor at Bethel Park High School in Pennsylvania. There's my Twitter handle if you're interested. So why Kahoot? I'm going to answer this question two different ways. Why do I Kahoot and why should you Kahoot? So a little bit of a fun backstory for me here with this. Whenever I started teaching, we had a choose your own adventure and service day. And you could pick whatever you wanted. We were just starting with our Chromebooks. So we started with a Google Chromebook and we were looking at all the different apps you could use. And there was one that kind of jumped out at me that I thought was really interesting. And it was called Kahoot with an exclamation point attached at the end. I was like, all right, I guess that's probably pretty exciting. Maybe I should look into this. And so I went with it. And I sat through the training, learned a little bit about it, and it was like, this is pretty cool. I can see a lot of different ways in which I could use this. So I kind of decided, I think I'll embrace this and I'll start, going forward with it. So myself, I do believe I'm a little bit technologically savvy. Whenever we had to go to distance learning, pretty much everybody came to me to ask questions about, how do you do this? How do you do that? If I want to do a Kahoot that gives me reports, how do I go about doing that? What's the best way to set up different classrooms and this and that? So what's really nice about Kahoot, when I tried to tell to a lot of my co-teachers, is that it's super user-friendly in every way. It's user-friendly for teachers. It's user-friendly for students. You can do a lot with it, and it's not, you don't have to know coding, you don't have to know Python, you don't have to know all these different languages and stuff to be able to take care of it. It's really not that difficult. And what I've learned, especially when it comes to our high school students, when just a little bit of competition involved, they are so much more engaged than you could ever imagine. So students love to play, they love to learn. The amount of emotion going through them whenever they're working towards, scoring on the podium for a Kahoot is just incredible. I mean, I've seen as far as kids, they get a question wrong and they punch their screen. And like, I feel bad, but at the same time, I'm like, all right, they definitely are engaged. So taking a little bit far. But what is my favorite thing to do with Kahoot? And I think the reason why I was asked to help present, that is my random science Kahoots. When they started doing the verified educator program, a colleague of mine texted me one day and said, my son just saw they just did one of your Kahoots and they saw your photo. Like, is that the person you work with? So it turns out that, I guess you can see here scrolling through, this is the list of some of the different ones that I've made so far. And people really seem to enjoy it. And this is definitely one of my favorite things to do and probably my favorite part of Kahoot. It allows me to introduce content that normally may or may not find its way into a classroom. So right over here, you can see an example. So this question is readable, fact or false? Well, in actuality, you can actually figure out how this question is readable because as long as the first letter and the last letter are the same, you can actually decipher it in your brain, figuring it out. So this just opens up a wealth of information, talk about Gestalt psychology and all this different stuff, but sometimes that just doesn't find its way into normal education. So I find that students are sometimes more engaged when I do a random science Kahoot than they normally are. So I put together a bunch that, you can see some there, they're theme related, they're for the time of the year. When I first just started, I literally just picked random facts that were in my brain, threw them onto a Kahoot and went from there. And kids, they sometimes they eat it up, they love it. So what are some other things or some out of the box Kahooting that I do? Well, this one's definitely in the box, but it's a great resource, and that's test review. When you do a test review Kahoot, students can look at all of the information. You can give them more questions than there are in the test. Sometimes I give them all of the test as a Kahoot. It's verbatim each question, or maybe I change the answers. Maybe the distractors in the Kahoot are just jokes and they're more fun, but the actual test questions might be more genuine and serious. But either way, for example, so I'll do my ecology Kahoot and we'll go through all the different parts of ecology, learn about it, look at it. I can use that in both my bio class and my earth science class. A couple of years ago, I was just kind of sitting there and all of a sudden I looked at this old timey, one page DNA fingerprinting worksheet that we would do. And I think this was either we had just come back from being remote or we were still remote. But I just remember looking at it and thinking, like, this is straight out of the 50s or the 60s. Like, there has to be a more fun way, more engaging way in order to do this. And that's where I realized, well, what if I turned into a Kahoot? So sure enough, I took that information from that and I threw it up on here. I put a couple of different questions in, some other, pieces of information here or there. But I took what was just something that would kind of be like, here you do this, or, it felt like I should turn the transparency, like that's how old school it was. And I kind of made into this Kahoot, and the kids kind of got a lot more into it. They really enjoyed it. And especially now that you can include the images on their screens as well, I feel like it really changed the way in which we can go about teaching. So we're talking about supercharging. I feel like if you think about it, it can become a Kahoot. If you look at something that you're already doing and transform it into something that's a little more modern, a little more interesting, a little more exciting, and a little more competitive. Like I said, that competition, just a touch of competition, completely changed the way in which students behave. The other thing I did a few years back that was a real game changer, and I will never go back to the old school which way I did it, and that was my syllabus. So the first few days of school, you pull out a syllabus, you read it, you look at it, everybody just kind of falls asleep a little bit, and they're like, all right, whatever. I decided, well, what if I took the information from the syllabus? I put some serious information in there, I put some fun in there, and we kind of combine the two and make it for a much more engaging task. So here's an example from one that I put on there. I think it's the very first one I start with, and that's don't talk while I'm skiing, antiquing, talking, or defenestrating. Now, it's a fun question, mostly actually because of that last one, that little distractor there, and that's defenestrating, which if you don't know, it means you throw somebody out of a window. That's a word I learned way back in high school when I was taking AP Euro with the defenestration of Prague. One of the most rewarding things I found is when I teach kids what that word means, and then we're in like the last week or two of school and it comes up again, that shows me that after this entire year, these last 9 months, they still remember some of the stuff I told them on the very first day of school. So it's really a great way to kind of engage them, and it really starts to put that information into their head. They start thinking about it. They might go and talk about it, when their parents ask them, what did you do in school today? Well, instead of saying, oh, well, the teacher pulled out the syllabus, we looked at it, and we moved on. They might tell them, oh yeah, we learned this, we did that, we learned what the word defenestrating means. So it's a lot to just kind of up your game, to engage your students and to hook them right from the start. If you miss a class, in those first day or two, it can be a lot harder to really get their attention, to, respect and all that, especially when it comes to the older kids. But if you hook them right from that first minute, when they walk into your classroom and they hear that Kahoot music playing, they know what they're doing. They get excited right away. And I know that they love that Kahoot music because I've been yelled at whenever I mute it because I'm trying to talk. They're like, no, 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 bring that Kahoot music back. We really want that. So they love it. And I love those different versions of it now. So what are some added benefits to using Kahoot? Why do you want to do it? I don't think it takes too much to describe that it was perfect for distance learning. When we first started working from home, when the students weren't with us, we actually set it up such that the students could work asynchronously and take care of their work whenever it worked best for them. And I love the ability to assign them a Kahoot. You could see what they did. They had a little bit of fun doing it, and they could kind of do it whatever, if it was 12 a.m., 12 p.m., whenever they needed to take care of it, they were able to. So it was awesome. One thing I really suggest for anyone, now, maybe you're not a scientist, so, maybe do different novels or whatever for an English class or vocab terms, do a random Kahoot very early on, in like the first week or so. So just kind of random information. It will give a voice to students who normally don't speak up. My favorite thing to see is which students are actually inherently really intelligent. You give them a knowledge Kahoot, just random knowledge, you're going to see who knows a lot, who's thinking at a deeper level. You're going to see kids who might not do so well in your class because they're not very good test takers or they're not into doing homework, but you will see that intelligence right away when you're seeing that they're the first ones, they're the top of the leaderboard, and they stay up there from start to finish. So it's a great way to give voice to students who are normally incredibly quiet, or even while everybody else is yelling, those kids still get to have their voice in the game. And as I was saying, it gives insight into students' intelligence. So you get to see kind of what they know, what they're thinking, even though it might not be said. Maybe they're just randomly guessing, but by the law of averages, they're not going to do, they're not going to be top on the leaderboard if they don't actually know a lot of this stuff coming into this. It puts competition in the lesson. And like I said, you add just a touch of competition and everything changes. You tell them there's a best of ribbon for them, and they're just clamoring to be, first on the podium. One of the things I love to do with Kahoot, I do the review before the test, or I do random science Kahoots right before the end of the 9 weeks. And what I have found is when you offer them some bonus points, what I do is first place gets 5 points, second place gets 4, third place gets 3, fourth gets 2, and then fifth gets 1. You get a lot more participation and a lot more students engaged when that's the case. So a little bit of competition can really go far. And as I was mentioning, it's a great way to introduce material that might not fit in exactly where you want it to elsewhere. So I can teach students about different ways that organisms interact. The cookie cutter shark might not come up in a normal lesson, but I get to teach kids that there's a shark out there that takes a bite out of a fish but doesn't kill them because it lets them grow back and then bite them again, and it creates a very different dynamic to consume it. So it's a great way to kind of squeeze in some information you might not normally get to throw in. And like I said, that's the kind of stuff that they talk about at the dinner table. That's the kind of stuff that they tell their parents whenever they get home. Or it's the things that they remember, even in future years. So that's my spiel. Again, thanks for everybody who listened, and for anyone who's ever played in my Kahoots, thank you. I'm always surprised that my minerals and rocks Kahoots, the ones that I really didn't think were all that exciting, have like couple thousands of plays. So I don't know who's out there, what geologist is sharing that information, but please by all means check out my verified profile, see if there's anything on there that works out for you that you can use. And I'll keep putting more information out there, keep doing more. And again, thank you for listening. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. And that's that.